Let's jump right into this chat because we are just a few weeks away from getting our grubby little mitts on this magical new Grey Daze album, The Phoenix. First of all, you're in the home stretch. You can breathe. The records are on the way. What's going through your head?
Well, I'm glad to see that people are liking the vibe on the record so far. You know, it's a I wouldn't say super far departure from the last one, but it's definitely different. And you know, the differentiating factor on this album is it feels like a much more of a rock anthem record, whereas the last record was much more emotional, a lot more sadness, and definitely just a lot more reflective as you were listening to. A lot of tears were shed through the listeners as they listened to it. This one, I think, instead of crying, they're going to want to raise their fist and scream along with Chester, and that I'm excited about it. And it's getting the response so far that we were hoping for.
Fuck yeah! So I know this is the most basic question on earth, but I feel like it's a fair one here. What is the meaning behind that title, The Phoenix?
So The Phoenix can take on several meanings, but for the band, it really was a way to give a term that embodied what we felt this music was about and what Chester was about. So Chester, for all intents and purposes, is the Phoenix, and the music is being reborn through his passing, which is unfortunate, but there's a positive energy coming back through with his music.
Yeah.
And as much as it was painful to lose him, there is life on the other side, and there's gratitude on the other side, and there's celebration of who he was on the other side. And that's where we're at now. You know, for the first album, we were still in a lot of grief, we were still in a lot of pain, and now we really want to celebrate our friend.
So yeah, I like that was the MO that you went into the studio with, wanting to celebrate the late, great Chester Bennington. But in having that material and sort of giving it that new life and giving it that new spirit for his legacy to live on, how did you want to celebrate the man himself? Did that like differ in any way from the way you wanted to celebrate him on Amends?
I think in Amends, we were still in a little bit of shock. You know, we were still hurting, reeling. There was times where we'd listen to some and we literally would sit and cry together in the studio. So we weren't quite to the celebrating him. We were grateful for him and we loved him and we wanted to show that gratitude and love in the record. However, I don't think we were quite ready to say we're going to celebrate Chester yet. And this happened very organically, and I think we were in the studio Sunset Sound, and just maybe halfway through the session we said, God, this is starting to feel much more of a happy record, a lot more hopeful record, and it feels much more like we're celebrating our friend. We were having a lot of laughing, we were telling a lot of stories about him, and the way we do that is we talk shit to each other. You know, we make fun of each other in a good way, in a playful way, but that's how we do it. And there was a lot more of that on this record. And it just really happened organically where we just kind of looked at each other and was like, this feels a lot more like a celebration of his music and him as a human being. And so it really just happened that way.
So does this one feel in some kind of sense maybe more authentic to what Grey Daze was in its halcyon days?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think both records are very true to what Grey Daze was. I think it's a modern polish on the post-grunge sound Grey Daze was. So I wouldn't say one is more core than the other, but I just think it's a different attitude. The music has a different attitude on this record.
Sure. Was there anything you learned in the process as well from making Amends that you were able to sort of bring into the fold for the Phoenix?
For sure. So trying to figure out how to write Amends was a task that was pretty monumental in itself. How do we write a record with a singer we don't have, with vocals that are pretty much there and they are what they are? How do we do this? And so once we figured out how to do that formula, how to create that formula, we had a bit of a template to work off of. So we knew what worked and we knew how each of us liked to work within that formula. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's something we definitely took away from the Amends process, and we're able to apply it much easier without some of the pain points that we had on that first record. Although I'll say we took a year to write this record. So we really took our time and cultured and curated these songs in a way that I think they turned out phenomenal. I'm really proud of this album.
Fuck yeah. So you should be. What was your
Thank you.
experience at Sunlight Sounds, being in such an iconic room?
So Sunset, I mean, there's when you walk into the lobby, there's 50 gold and platinum records, everything from Toto to Van Halen to Janis Joplin to the Doors. It's that is a little intimidating on some aspects. You know, you're like, wow, this all this great music came out of the studio, but then at the same time, you're like, yeah, it's intimidating, but at the same time, that's what's possible here. That's the magic that's in these rooms. That's the magic that's been here. So they're leaving us that behind, and success leaves clues. Let's immerse ourselves in some of this awesome musical energy and try to pull some of that magic out of these rooms. And I think we did. You know, just think about Alex Van Halen shredding on his drum kit
Yeah.
in those studio rooms, or Eddie Van Halen shredding a guitar solo. That's pretty awesome to think about when you're in the same space that they were occupying when they did it.
Do you see the Phoenix as like one day like standing on that echelon with records like the Van Halen discs, with those Prince discs, those Joplin discs? Is that the goal?
No,
No?
no, and that's a great question. That's a fair and great question. I would love for our music to stand the test of time like that, but that wasn't the goal of when we tried to do this. This was try to complete music that we had started while Chester was alive. And while I think Chester's one of the best singers of all time, his fans, I think, certainly think that. I'm not sure Grey Daze will ever have that stature because we haven't had the chance to tour the world and touch people's lives in that way. But I do think there's an emotional connection for a lot of people that do listen and have listened to the Grey Daze music. It might hold a special place in their heart. I'm just not sure we're going to have the reach, that long arm of reach that Linkin Park had, or that the Van Halen guys had. We just don't have that kind of shelf life, and that's okay. That doesn't hurt my feelings or make the project any less important to me. This was about completing the music for us as a band with our friend Chester, and that's good enough for us. If
Yeah.
it happens to do that and movies pick up on some of the stuff, or it lives another life in different arenas, by all means we'll champion that and be super proud of it. But that's definitely not what we're trying to strive for. We try to make the best possible songs on each and every track. I think we did a great job at that, and only time will tell whether or not it's actually going to have a place in the annals like that.
Sure. So when you're there in the mixing room listening back to some of these songs in 2022, do you have to think like, okay, what would Chester think of this? What would his vibe be on this? Or is there a level of trust that you have to put in your own instincts?
Well, you try to put yourself in his headspace, but he's not here. So at the very best, you're taking an educated guess, and that's what we had to do. So I think, while I think we did an awesome job, I think it still would have turned out different had he been here, because he would have had his own thoughts and his own inputs and his own creative process that he was so good at. I can't help but think that it would be dramatically different had he been here. However, I still think he's very proud of what we did.
Yeah.
You know, we had some limitations, but at the same time, I don't think you're listening to this music going, oh, wow, they had limitations. I think you're listening going, this is a fucking great song.
Yeah.
And that was the intent. We wanted it to sound like we recorded it with him last week. And I think we did that.
Well, here's what I'm curious about, because Grey Daze was, of course, you know, Chester's baby, but it was also yours and Kristen's and Mace's back in the 90s too. Is there a level of autonomy that you grant yourselves with that in mind?
Oh man, that's a great question as well. I think we're forced into that position. If we once we picked up the mantle and said we're going to finish the record, we had to take that responsibility on our shoulders as well and say, look, this is up to us. Nobody's going to finish this for us. If it sucks, it's on us, and if it's great, it's on us. But we had to kind of accept that responsibility when we took it on.
So obviously in using Chester's vocals and material, there is a process there. How involved is the Bennington estate in the well-oiled machine that is Grey Daze?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not on the creative side. Talinda trusts us to do what we think is best with the music. She knew Chester and I were the closest of friends, and she knew that I would never do anything to hurt him or harm him, especially his image and what people think of him. My job is to try to curate what we already had with him in a way that was still meaningful and relevant to the world, so that they could hear Chester in a different light other than Linkin Park. And there's super stoked for everything he did in Linkin Park. Those guys were hardworking bastards and deserve every accolade they've ever got. So, but Chester was more than just that, and that's really what this project is about: is showing him in a different light. And it's not a competitive thing. It's a, hey, here's Chester doing something else that you guys might like if you appreciate Chester.
Sure. And do you listen to or take into consideration the criticism from that group of Chester's fans who don't feel so groovy about his old material being reworked posthumously?
I did in the beginning. Now I just think they're fucking idiots, to be quite honest, because they have absolutely no basis in reality. Some of the comments, and this is far few between. I don't mean to make a mountain out of a molehill because it's a very small group of people, but that small group of people are fucking dicks and they talk a lot of crap. And you know, some of the comments, oh, you're just trying to do this to get rich. Motherfucker, I was rich before this project. I hate to tell you, I'm very wealthy. I'm very well off. I'm very successful. This is a money draining fucking project. I've spent more money than I've made on this. I will never make money on this project. It is such a small amount of money. It's a financial waste of fucking time if I looked at it like that. That's not why we do this. So when I see that, some little fuckhead in his parents' basement talking shit about what we're doing, fuck him. I can't put a lot of time and energy into that. So all I have to do is basically say, fuck those people. Let me concentrate on the people that are really loving what we're doing, love the music. I'll put my energy into those people because that's positive energy. That's a positive affirmation. That's a positive thing that we can do. And the guy that wants to sit in his basement and talk shit can fuck himself.
Sure, yeah, because at the end of the day, it's a celebration. It's supposed to be that positive spiritual thing.
That's right.
I know this record's not even out, but I am wondering, where do you go from here? Is there more material to tap into or another plan?
You know, it never surprises me. As soon as we're about to release a project, the first thing out of people's mouth is, what are you doing next? Like, oh, can we relax for a moment and just enjoy what we did? But no, that's a fair question. I think we're going to go into the studio at the end of the summer and do a 5-song acoustic EP like we did with Stripped. And then we'll see what's next. We have more material. We'll see if it's something we want to tackle. But we really wanted to get through these 2 records. That was the main goal. If other things happen beyond this, great. But I mean, we're not going to replace Chester. That's not going to happen. So, you know, we have what we have, and that's that.
Sure. I like that. I like that vibe. Well, for now, this record is absolutely fucking magical. I listened to it the other day. I literally like just woken up and I was still sort of adjusting to the real world. But like 3 songs in, I was like, I am so fucking awake right now. Like it's like musical caffeine.
Thank you. Thank you. It's got a lot of energy. It feels like it punches you in the face. It's good. Thank you.
It does. It's that punch you want too. You know, it's like that mosh pit punch where you're like, yes, I'm in the moment. I'm living this shit.
Exactly. That angst that people loved about Chester is present on this record.
Hell yeah. We'll wrap it up here, but Sean, mate, thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat. The Phoenix is out Friday, June 17, Loma Vista Records. The new single, Starting to Fly, is out right the fuck now. Thank you again. Take care.
Have an awesome day. Thanks for having me on.
You too. Cheers, man. See ya.